So here for objective 1, we are to make the square bot go through the maze using only timing of the motors. This first line, I'm just including the servo library into the code, and then I'm just naming what the two servo motors are. In the setup, I am just naming which pins the motors are on. Then in my loop, I'm just telling it move forward, and then servo right for the right motor to go forward at 120, and then servo left to go forward at 122. So it's just going in a straightforward line. As you can see here, 40 for servo left for turn left causes the left motor to go in the opposite direction of the right motor, so it turns left. And I just repeated the same step, changing the timing, as you can see, to control how long it does something. And then here at the bottom, I have it stopping, and then I put a while loop so it doesn't start up again, so it's stuck in the while loop with nothing in it telling the motors to do anything. So for objective 2, we are making the square bot go through a maze using a push button to control it, and then we are also using an LCD to project what the square bot is doing. And here I am having to include the Vex LCD library and the servo library. Here we are just creating a new instance for the LCD object and then naming the two servo motors. And then right here we are initializing the push button value so it's equal to 1 instead of 0, so that the push button kind of works as a stop button. In my setup, I am stating the pins that the motors are attached to. The left motor is on pin 10 and the right motor is on pin 11. And still in the setup, we are initializing the display and set up the communication for the LCD unit to communicate with the Arduino. We are clearing whatever was previously on the display and then telling it to display robot start for 1 second and then to clear. And here we are just setting the pin for the push button and setting it as an input pull-up. In my loop, I have a few while loops, but the first one here is just saying that if the push button equals 1, which it should be, that it will do these things. And we're having it check for the push button value, so then it only reads it once. And if it becomes 0, it breaks out of the push button or breaks out of the while loop. And for this, it's making the LCD project forward, and it's doing that while it is moving forward. Then we are clearing the LCD, and then once the push button is pressed, it stops and the LCD is projecting stop. Then it goes in reverse to back away from the wall because it just hit a wall. And the LCD projects reverse. Then stops again. Then turns left, and it does this going through the maze. And then when I need it to go forward again, I have to tell it to read the push button so it can see that as 1 again. And then it goes into this while loop where I have it read the push button again, and the LCD projects forward so that it continues to go forward whenever the push button is 1. Then when it hits the next wall, it stops, then goes in reverse, and then it turns right, and then goes and stops, and reread the push button again. And it just does this over and over again until I get to the end of the maze. And then here, I'm just putting the Arduino in a while loop so that the last thing the Arduino does is make the motors stop, and the while loop here makes the motors never turn on again until we change this code.
Whatever you pass each time. Do you know what I mean?
That's actually good. I always have a 4D
Because that way you don't have to. You know what the void means? It means it doesn't return anything. Okay. So how are we doing, Kyle?
pretty good. Now the voltages of each one.
So let me make sure. So you're using voltage across that divided by
The resistance of that one.
that one. Awesome. Okay.
So the first one got 0.68 watts. Second one.
Or that can be rewritten as well. If I wanted to put 20 milliwatts. You know what to do? You multiply it by 1,000.
Okay.